Glory to Jesus Christ. One of the most significant decisions I made when I was in college was to join the Navy. I decided to apply for Liverpool University's ROTC, the Naval Officer Training Contingent. And this was quite out of character for me, but the more and more I thought about this, the more and more I found to appeal to me. And so I went through this selection process and gave interviews on my opinions of current affairs and had to try and figure out what Saddam Hussein was up to at that time. This would have been in 1994, I think. But anyway, the night of the final selections was announced. And everybody had to show up to the unit headquarters, dressed smartly, and we were told to wait in a big waiting room with everybody else, as one by one the commanding officer and his lieutenant would invite people in to hear the news of whether they'd made the grade, made the cut, or whether their application was being rejected. And one by one, people's names were called off of a list, and they went away to learn their fate. And we were told that the lucky ones would be invited back. And one by one, the room started to empty of people, and we'd all wish them good luck and fingers crossed. And we were all waiting for our turn. And then the commander comes in and says, "Everybody who's left, I've got good news for you. You've all been selected. The people we called out were the ones we don't feel are a good fit. But all you who are still here, you've all been accepted." It was an experience of judgment that was surprisingly positive. I was quite surprised to find out that I'd been accepted to join the Royal Navy. But sure enough, I had been. And I became a midshipman with HMS Charger, which is a tiny little gunboat that apparently in times of active conflict is used as a coastal patrol vessel. But in the meantime, in the historical and famous naval port of Liverpool, it's used to train university students who might go on to consider Navy careers. And so until my dodgy ear got me a medical discharge, I had great pleasure kind of being an unofficial unit chaplain to the Navy in Liverpool, and it was lots and lots of fun. But that was an experience of judgment, and it was a pleasant surprise. Please God, we all have a pleasant surprise in the ultimate judgment. Please God, all of us will hear those wonderful words, "You've made it. Well done." And what's the criteria? The criteria on which judgment is passed, they're not difficult things. They're not extraordinary feats of valor, or as in my case, interpretation of current events, as it was when I joined the Navy. It's giving drink to the thirsty, food to the hungry, clothing to the naked, visit those who are sick, visit those who are imprisoned. I wonder if you've ever done any of those things. And I bet you have. I bet you have. I know I have. Not as much as I could have done or I'm sure should have done. But I actually think I've done all of those things. But I think there might have been many times when I missed the Lord in disguise. And as I was preparing this homily, I came across online, I wish I could have made a better copy of it. But this is an icon of Jesus. Jesus as a thirsty person being offered something to drink. Jesus as a hungry person at someone's doorstep being given something to eat. Jesus as well, he's wearing his divinity and his humanity, but since somebody's offering him a robe, I'm sure this is the Jesus who needs clothing. And then on the bottom tier, we have Jesus, who was a stranger and is being welcomed. And then we have Jesus, who is sick, lying on those strange beds that are depicted in icons. And finally, Jesus in jail. You can even see the bars if you look carefully. This icon is absolutely true. If you think of Jesus as at least every baptized person, or by extension every human being that bears his image, Jesus is all of these things. Jesus is hungry and homeless and thirsty and naked, or at least in need of clothes, sick and in prison, or a stranger. And whatever we may or may not have done in past days and past years, all of us have the opportunity again and again and again, when we encounter Jesus in disguise, to reach out to him. And in doing so, also to qualify for that great judgment. Wouldn't it be wonderful if we hear those words, "Come into the kingdom prepared for you by my Father"? Saint Theophylact, the Bible commentator, says this: oh, that's not the passage I wanted to read. It was John Chrysostom. Phylact can wait for a minute. John Chrysostom. Because he put it very positively. He, being gracious, says St. John Chrysostom, requires only what is within our power, or rather, even less than what is in our power, leaving us to exert our generosity in doing more. He's only asking what we can do. He says in one of the Gospels, if you even give someone a cup of cold water in my name, you will not lose your reward. Have you ever given anybody a cup of cold water? Have you ever fed a hungry person? Have you ever visited a sick or an imprisoned person? All of these things, reminds St. John Chrysostom, they're within our power. And to the people who've done those simple things, and please God one day to you and to me, St. John says this: now, even in the presence of the world, and at the appearing of that unspeakable glory, he proclaims you and he crowns you, and acknowledges you as his sustainer and his host. And he is not ashamed of saying such things about you, that he may make the crown even brighter for you. For though the good people had done 10,000 things, their munificence were of grace, that in return for services so small and cheap, so great a heaven, so great a kingdom, and so great an honor should be given them. It's wonderful that you can buy, so to speak, or exchange such a great kingdom and such a great heaven for a bit of food and a bit of drink. But Jesus says that over and over. And this is where St. Theophylact comes in. He says, feed Christ, who hungers for our salvation. If you give food and drink to him who hungers and thirsts for teaching, you have given food and drink to Christ. For within the Christian there is Christ, and faith is nourished and increased by teaching. If you should see someone who has become a stranger to his heavenly fatherland, take him in with you. While you yourself are entering into the heavens, lead him in as well, lest while you preach to others, you yourself should be rejected. If a man should cast off the garment of incorruption which he had at his baptism, so that he is naked, clothe him. And if one should be infirm in faith, as Paul says, help him. And visit him who is shut up in the dark prison of this body, and give him counsel, which is a light to him. Perform then all of these 6 types of love, both bodily, but also spiritually. For we consist of both soul and body. And these acts of great love are to be accomplished by both. Jesus has told us what we need to do so that on that glorious day we may sigh a sigh not of groaning or of fear, but of relief that we've made it. And please God, I will see you all there. Glory to Jesus Christ.